The World of Warcraft podcast, so you don't have to. This is The Instance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Instance. This is a February edition of The Instance. Happens to be the 16th, right here smack dab in the middle of the month. I am Scott Johnson. That is Bobby Frankenberger. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm all right. It's the first time I've called you Bob, and it kind of took me off my brain a little bit.
My mom calls me Bob, so it felt a little weird for me too.
Yeah. But, did I feel paid? Do you expect me to tell you to be home on time and don't break curfew or any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. But there are other people have called me Bob, but it was always when I was working in like an office, because everybody. I used to work in like a corporate setting, cubicles all around.
Sure.
And everybody there, I guess, wants to use your grown-up name, and they don't realize that Bobby that is my grown-up name.
Mm-hmm. I think you keep it as long as you can. I'm kind of sad that Scotty went the way of the dodo a little bit. Nobody uses it anymore except my mom.
I don't know if I've ever told you a story. I don't know why my mom calls me Bob. I guess she shortened the name, but I don't know if I ever told you a story that the reason my name is so on my birth certificate it's Robert. But my mom never intended for me to be called Robert. She wanted my name to be Bobby, but in the naivete of her youth, she for some reason thought that you didn't realize you could just put whatever the heck you wanted on a birth certificate. She thought, well, Bobby's a nickname for Robert, so I guess I'm supposed to put Robert on the birth certificate, and I'll just call him Bobby.
Oh. You know what? I don't blame her. It does seem like the formal thing to do. I get it.
Yeah, and I don't blame her either. Before I had kids and before I was like a full-fledged, fully into adult, I kind of like thought that was silly. Like of course you could. But you're so dumb, Mom. But now that I'm in adulthood, and now that I've had kids, like you feel like you got it. You're supposed to. There's a way to do things when you go through these like big life changes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, You're in the hospital and they're coming in and they're like, okay, here's the thing, you got to sign this, put a name on this, and you're like, okay, what? I don't want to do it wrong.
No, you feel like, and if you do, they're going to come after you or something, right? You're just trying to adhere to whatever the rules are, and then as the older you get, you realize, what a bunch of crap. I could have put anything on those birth certificates.
None of this matters.
No. We named our daughter Taylor, and she is called Taylor, but for about 3 hours in the middle of the night she was born, her birth certificate was spelled Tailor. Because we were
like the World of Warcraft profession.
Yeah, like you need to make me a new set of shoulders for my freaking priest.
Yeah,
kind of Taylor. And then in the morning they said, well, you can change it, because we'd made some comment, and the nurse says you can change it, but it's going to cost you another, I don't know, $50, $75, something like that. I was like, really? You're going to charge us? You haven't even sent it in yet. Like, it's still here.
Yeah.
You have another blank one in the back. I know you do. Just let us sign the thing. She's like, well, it's just policy. I'm like, all right, fine. So for $50, I re-signed it, did it Taylor.
You changed it to Alchemist.
And yeah, you lose all your previous skill. You got to start over.
Right. All those recipes you ground and learned, they're gone.
I appreciate that you brought it back to World of Warcraft. That's actually great for this show. Well done. Well, anyway, everybody, we're here. We got a show to do, and some things have transpired since we last spoke. For example, the update about housing. We're going to get that in a minute. What we're doing in the game, we're kind of at I don't know if I call it a lull, but this is normal. You have a kind of a chunk of time between seasons, and at this stage of an expansion, even though this expansion is getting a new expansion is coming out literally this year, and this is different and weird, but you still have that dip, right? You have a content dip. That's the way it is.
But it's not as much of a dip as it used to be. Like I used to be. When I say used to be, I mean a couple of expansions ago.
Yeah.
For Dragonflight, it feels like the same cadence that sort of started to come in during Shadowlands and it was fully in Dragonflight, where you have just a month or around a month and a half of a lull. But honestly, they make it so if you don't want to have a lull. There's lots of stuff to still do, but I need a break. There's so many games out there. I look forward to the break. Our raid team together. We kind of got AOTC, and I appreciated that Tanner, our grand poobah raid leader.
Yeah.
He said, "Okay, we got AOTC, so we're just taking a break.
Yeah.
See you guys in the next season." I was like, "Thank goodness," because I look forward to that. Gives me time I got to dig into other games and stuff.
Yeah, that's the other problem is we are gamers who like a lot of games, and I'm not saying that we didn't like a lot of games back in the heyday of World of Warcraft, but they weren't as many. It wasn't like this constant stream.
Oh
you used to go like February and March were dead back in the day.
Yeah.
There's no games. There was last year.
February and March this year is like there's too much to keep up with.
Yeah, it's the opposite of dead. And they're big major releases. I need to be playing Avowed right now. I haven't been able to even launch it yet.
Oh my gosh, you were just reminded me that Avowed is I
know.
Play it.
It's not technically out. Well, it's early access right now, so you can pay up to it, and I hate that.
Oh, okay.
But I kind of tempted anyway. Anyway, that all happens next week and is already out in early access now. Civ 7 is out and being played. You're playing Civ 7, I know.
I know. I'm at war. I'm trying to rid the world of Harriet Tubman.
Yeah, man, what a menace.
I told my daughter that, and she had just last year in 5th grade learned about like the Civil War.
Yeah.
I said last night I came out. I'm like, I told my wife, I was like, I finally almost destroyed Harriet Tubman, and my daughter was still awake, and she said, "What?"
she knows enough about the real Harriet Tubman to know that sounds insane coming out of your mouth. Well, yeah. So there's that. There's a million other things. I got a backlog as thick as a dictionary, and it's just hard to keep up. Yeah. And I'm here to tell you, back in 2008, 2009, it wasn't like that.
No.
There were a lot of games, but it wasn't like this. So I think that given the current cadence of things, I think this is actually good I think this is part of why World of Warcraft is going to potentially moving to a model that means every year you're getting something new. Whether this experiment ultimately works and doesn't, or means that this is the new way in perpetuity, we don't know that yet. But we know for at least 3 expansions, starting with the one we're on now, then Midnight, then what they call the third one?
Oh geez,
the War Without.
Oh, the Last Titan.
The Last Titan. It should be the War Without. That would make me laugh, but they didn't do that.
That would be good.
Yeah, I'm very easy to satisfy.
Without it's kind of, I don't know. There's a sing-songiness to it.
There's something there. Yeah. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is we are here for it regardless, and we've enjoyed not just the last 6 episodes plus all the extra content, but I hope you guys have as well. So at the end of the show, you'll find out ways you can support that and keep this fire burning.
Yeah.
Now that the raid is taking a break, though, what are you doing in game? Are you hopping in on the regular? Are you just waiting for season 2? Like, where's Bobby's head at in this thing?
I'm mostly just waiting for season 2 right now. I started leveling up a mage. I got it to max level. I'm going to try to check out Arcane Mage. My inspiration for that was kind of like a joke.
Okay.
So a little bit of our raid team, we raid together, so we talk about our raid team sometimes. I was tanking. You and I were tanking our raid team,
right?
And Tanner, in between, between raids, sometimes people like to shuffle things around and decide they're going to do something different. I know you have enjoyed tanking, so you want to keep tanking.
I really did enjoy it to the point that I don't want to. I feel like stopping now stops the experiment too soon. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, well, there's plenty to learn. There's plenty to improve, and it gets even better. I know from a tank perspective. Once you really keep getting deeper and deeper, it gets better and better.
Yeah, you get a taste for it, and you're just like, man, that tasted good. I think I'll keep doing that for a while.
Yeah. So our raid leader Tanner decided he wanted to check out Paladin tanking, so he's gonna co-tank with you in this next one.
That's right.
And then so I thought, wouldn't it be funny, because Tanner was an arcane mage, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I just decided to be an arcane mage?
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't
so that's
so I love that though. You guys swap positions, classes, and specs.
Yes.
Across the board. Exactly. I didn't know that was happening. I thought maybe you were going to pull out your Rhett Pally gloves or something and play that way.
Well, I am going to have to do that at the beginning, because remember, I do have another raid team that I do tank for, and I'm going to keep tanking for them.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
At the beginning, and I also tank for Mythic Plus. That's how I love to play Mythic Plus. So, so at the beginning, that's where when we jump in, I'm just going to have the gear for the Paladin. So
Right.
I'll start there, and then as I get the mage geared up, I'll probably start switching.
Why did you, outside of obviously it's kind of a funny swap around with Tanner, but why the Arcane Mage? What jumps out at you for that class right now?
Well, it was one of the couple that I already had at level 70. So easiness. But that's not really that much of an issue nowadays. It's so easy to level up an alt nowadays, especially with this turbulent time waste stuff that just ended now. But I think it ended, but it'll be ending soon if it hasn't already ended.
It's close.
There are just easy ways to. It's just so easy to level something up now. But Mage is a character I've always liked playing Mage. I've played Mage off and on since the beginning, since vanilla.
I love that you got you have a love for the hardest badass in the game with tons of plate and holy auras and business, and then you're happy to go the biggest softie in the game. You know,
it's nice no kidding, because I've played not just a plate wearing class for a long time, but a tank. So I'm used to just jumping in there. It's like, oh look, new content. There's 12 mobs. Let me just go and pull them all, and it's so different as a mage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you have to be very picky about how you play. Also, leveling, well, I guess you already had them leveled, so now it's just a matter of doing whatever you want to do. But leveling is so much easier with Frost than it is with an Arcane build. Although,
I think Arcane feels like the squishiest of all of them, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. But also, glass cannon's what you want in a raid scenario, right? Someone just makes sure to keep you up. Otherwise, that thing is still top tier DPS right now, so...
Yeah, but I'm having fun with it. It's very like precise and mathematical the way the Arcane Mage works. Like the rotation is, you have to do this, which sets you up for this, and then you count this many of the buffs you've generated in stacks, and then that allows you to do this, and you switch over to. And it's very methodical, and it feels very. It's very themey. Like it feels very arcane, right? Like an Arcane Mage would be figuring out the math behind the fabric of the universe and manipulating this and pulling this thread here and trying to wind it. It feels very much like, but just classes in World of Warcraft in general, back several expansions ago when they redid all the class fantasies, I feel like they did such a good job with most of them, making them feel like what they are.
I agree. That was a major goal of that expansion. I want to say it was Legion. Where obviously the weapons made a huge part of that, but their focus. And I remember I did an interview in BlizzCon with the team at the time, which is hilarious because the people I had on that panel, one of them now leads Overwatch, another one leads, or he's in the top leadership of Hearthstone, and the third guy, where did he end up? He's not at Blizzard anymore. But those guys were really heavily focused on that whole, let's get class, get classes back to where they aren't just like a homogeny of each other. Let's give them real identity again. And I think they did a killer job, and it's really stuck. Like it's hung on, and they've introduced since then, of course, Demon Hunters, that expansion, but they've introduced new characters or new classes and new races since then. I feel like those have adhered to that philosophy. So whatever they did then, they seemed serious about it, and they held to it, and I'm very happy about that too. I think the game needed it because it was felt by the end of Draenor, it felt like everybody was just kind of the same, and it didn't matter what you picked.
It definitely feels like class fantasy is one of the pillars of class development. And they've stuck to it. And so speaking of we've learned recently that that's how they develop all the different systems, right? Because with the housing stuff, they talked very explicitly about starting with defining the pillars of housing.
Yeah, let's talk about those a little bit. I know. So Bobby put up, if you haven't heard it yet or seen it, we did video and audio of this. The one-off Bobby did about housing after the new update came out. Do go check that out. It's a lot more in depth than what we're going to cover here. Most of you already know about it. We're going to just talk a little bit about it. It's why it's not on our news this week. But They talked a bunch about housing, and you know what? Even though their announcement was full of like a little nudge at, a little fun poke at Final Fantasy's housing system, and some good-hearted stuff there. Overall, even though I suppose it's not like massive amounts of information, there was enough here that got me excited about the feature.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think a lot of what you're hearing is excitement. There's a little bit of like apprehension from but I haven't heard a lot of like anger and that you hear a lot with when they announce things. The worst I've been hearing is people saying like, well, I'm not so sure. I'm gonna wait and see, which is fair. But if that's the worst you're hearing, then that's great.
Yeah. Wait and see is if that's as bad as it's gonna get, we're fine. It'll be okay.
Yeah. What are you the most excited about with housing?
So
what are you the most looking forward to?
I hate to jump on the kind of stereotype bandwagon here, but a lot of concerns out there initially were, well, is this Garrison's 2.0? And Blizzard's pretty emphatically saying no. So then my question was, well, show me what that means. How are you going to differentiate?
What is it?
Yeah, what exactly are you going to do? And I like that they gave us more information about that. It sounds like, at least initially, and this got some people worried that they weren't going to change it enough. I'm reading into it maybe a little bit that they will. But from what they said, it sounds like what's chief among their goals here, let's say they call these their pillars, is the boundless self-expression part. Mm-hmm. That's got to be key here. And that means if I am a blood elf, I sure as hell better be able to go nuts with the blood elf motif.
Yeah.
Or what are we doing? Now, it does sound like also that they're not going to have necessarily every possibility available at launch for this thing. But it will be enough to have, good variation. So if you want to live like an orc in an ugly orc freaking looking hut full of bones and, spikes and all the stuff that we think of when we think of the core of the horde, orcs and that sort of thing, this sounds like you're going to get that. And if you want the more austere human beautiful city Stormwind vibe, that will be there. It just can't stop there, right? It has to be much more than that. So that's the part I'm reading into, which is they haven't gotten down and dirty and said, hey, goblin lovers, it'll be goblin stuff for sure. Like, they haven't done that, but I think that they have to. So that's why I think they will. And I think that kind of self-expression is going to have to be an ongoing thing. And that's the other thing I liked about this is their third pillar, they call it long-lasting journey. You went into this in some decent detail on that episode, but I'll just say that this is the most important part for me. This is them committing to what they call an evergreen system, a system that will always be in the game. Think of it as any other thing that was introduced at some point and has stayed and will always stay and get improved. Something like transmog system that's in the game, or flying, dragonflight is permanent. We're never going to not have that. You may have tweaks to it, improvements to it, or whatever, but that is never going to go away. Them doubling down and committing to that, and not just doing like Garrison's, which was like, it's going to change the way you play, but we're never going to do it again.
Right?
They're not doing that. They're making sure to be saying that. The deeply social part is as funny as this is the least interesting part for me. I don't care.
That's really funny that you say that, because that's the part that's most interesting to me, and I've surprised myself in having that feeling, because I'm usually not like most of outside of raiding.
Yeah,
I usually approach World of Warcraft as sort of a single player game.
Yeah. Same.
Which a lot of people do. And so I didn't think that the social part of it was going to be, I didn't think I was going to be really much excited about housing at all, because I figured, what's the point if I'm not going to be having a lot of people over to see my house, then what's the point? But that's when the neighborhoods got me excited. But then I thought, okay, whatever. Why do I care if like 50 randos see what my house looks like? But the thing that hooked me and the thing that has me very excited is the idea that there's going to be private neighborhoods.
Right.
And so like your guild can have a neighborhood together. It's still going to be limited by 50 people. But I mean, Scott, you and me and the rest of our raid team, Bo, we could all be neighbors.
Yes. Now this, okay. I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to say I have a caveat for this.
Okay. Yeah.
I need it to be like a real neighborhood, in that I know that this Bo guy up the street's a cool dude, and he's, for some reason, he has flamingos in his front yard, but I'm not going to complain to the HOA.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I don't really get into his business. He doesn't really get into my business. But if we hear a loud boom outside, we might both walk out in our robes and go, "Did you hear that? Yeah. Do you know what that is? I think they're doing testing down at the proving grounds." Oh, okay. Well, anyway, how you doing? Doing okay. Okay, I'll see you later. Like, I don't want it to be so ingrained that it's going to be like, all right, now you need to have these many over to your place or else you're not going to get this achievement, and you need to make sure you know what I mean?
That's true. I don't want there to be like suddenly a little a world event starts that's like, time to throw a party.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want that. If they can avoid, if they can let me do that, if I want to do some RP or, you know, create a, this is this is how we meet. We get in Discord, but we also meet at Bobby's house. That's great. That's fun. That's emergent. That's us doing that, making those decisions. What I don't want is to just constantly feel like I need to be, you know, Karen of the block and always making sure everyone's hedges are as high as they're allowed to be. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't want any of that. I'm not even saying they're doing that, but all of that just makes me kind of go, I already don't like this in real life. And so what is a game going to want me to do? Because obviously a game is different than real life. What is it motivating me? What do I want to do in that world? And they may surprise me, and I may love this aspect. This may be my favorite part. But right now I'm just
and I'm
like,
hoping
whatever.
that they're just going to try to create a system that, like you said, makes us want to do things socially rather than feeling like we have to. And on it, if I'm being honest, Blizzard does have a history of having systems that they feel like they're trying to get people to do by putting things in the game that make you need to do it.
Yes.
And so I hope they, and that's kind of what you're saying, I hope they don't do that with this. I hope they just create housing that is compelling enough that people just want to do it. Transmog, you mentioned Transmog. Transmog is, to me, the perfect example of a system that they've added that players just love because it's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
it's a great example. And it evolves based on player use cases, not them saying, well, we need to motivate them to go do this, or they're never going to get that one knife that all the freaking rogues want or whatever. Right. Like, instead, it's like, here it is as presented. Interesting. People really want to do whites, like garbage trash stuff, because some of that art is cool. We should put that in. Okay, and then they do. And we should make it easier so they don't have to go to town to do this. And so they give you ways of doing that. And that kind of evolution of a system is my favorite. And they do a really good job, especially with Transmog. There's certainly other systems like that. I have to think that a lot of that is informing this. I would hope.
I hope so. Yeah.
So we'll see. Coming soon. Well, midnight. But that's still pretty soon by WoW terms.
Coming at midnight.
Yeah. I guess it'll be probably, well, they haven't given us a date, have they? But we think like November or something like that.
Yeah, we're thinking somewhere. It's supposed to be in winter sometime. That's what they said. I think so.
That's
so
they have their timeline, and I think winter is what they say. But
yeah.
We're still in the middle of the current winter. We'll see how this goes. Yeah. Anyway, make sure you do check out that episode on housing that Bobby put up. It was great. It wasn't too long ago either, right when this announcement dropped. I think that weekend, day after. Yeah. So look at us, Johnny. Johnny's on the spots, with the new content and the whatnot. All right. Time to talk about something that does qualify as news, and it's right here.
Big news of the month.
So we have a release date for patch 11.1, the Undermined. This is we just got this information not too long ago, live on February 25th. So not very long. We have, what is that, 2 weeks?
Oh geez,
16th.
Yeah, it's like a week away.
A week and a half,
a little
over
a week. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have a lot of time before this happens, which is great. I'm excited about this, and you are probably all aware, but we'll just reiterate: this is a we're going deeper. Okay, we're digging down into the Azerothian crust to find out more about what's down there. And one thing that's down there is a giant new zone called the Undermine, full of goblins doing dark goblin bullshit. And
yeah, it's underneath. We know canonically the Undermine is below the isn't it the Isle of Kazan? It's down under
correct.
that volcano that's there. It's Kajaro. That's what it is.
Kajaro, right. And these are these goblins we've met before, or are they a faction that are all just hanging out down there and have been hiding? Like
So there's a bunch of cartels down there, and yes, most of them. We might be introduced to some that we've never heard of before, but so I know that there's 4 cartels that we're going to be interacting with directly as part of the progression of the questing and the zoning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those 4 cartels are ones we've definitely seen before. They're the Steamweedle cartel, which we've been interacting with the Steamweedle cartel since. I think that's the one that was in Warcraft 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say even prior to vanilla.
Maybe Warcraft 2 was that the Steamweedle, or was that the venture company? I don't know.
I can't remember who used to roll out the. Oh no, those are dwarves. I can't remember, or maybe it was a dwarf and a goblin, and there was a unit that rolled out and did basically demolition stuff.
Well, there was the flying units on the Horde side in Warcraft 2. Weren't you able to get Zeppelins?
I can't remember. It's been so long.
I don't remember.
I don't remember
it
at
was
all.
a long time ago.
Now I can go get those games.
But either way, there were goblins in Warcraft 2, and it was one of these 4 cartels I know. But the Steamweedle, the Blackwater, the Bilgewater, and the Venture Company.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think that's right.
Yeah, sounds right.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's all 4. So they've all got a piece of this. And this, by the way, same date, the current Plunderstorm ends. So I think I see what they're doing here. they've got a bit of a plan for schedule with content where it's like, all right, things kind of dip in the expansion, slow down. People are catching up at the tail end of that, those who weren't, hardcore or whatever. And then, hey, let's put a new Plunderstorm in there to keep some of the attention spans while people are busy playing Avowed and Civ 7.
Yeah.
And then they come back with, hey, when that ends, here's your new content. I think it's actually pretty good that they're doing this way. I like it.
I do. That's one way you could look at it, is they're just trying to keep eyeballs and subscriptions in the game, and that for sure they do have to make money. But another way you could look at it, though, is that they could have done Plunderstorm in the middle of the season, and I would have been like, that would have been no good, because there'd be too much stuff to do.
That's true. Yeah. I know there's going to be overlap sometimes, but I think the way they're doing it is okay. So anyway, we get the hub of the Goblin Ingenuity and Undermined as your zone overview. Like you said, those are the factions that are going to be there. You're going to drive. There's a car. And DRIVE stands for something. It's an acronym for Dynamic and Revolutionary Improvements to Vehicular Experiences.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? It's a mouthful.
Gotta love the Goblin acronyms. Yeah.
Yep. They got this G99 breakneck vehicle. You can use it in that zone, but that's it. It's not a car you can take out of there. And part of that is because physically it can do things. It can drift. It can move really fast.
Yeah.
It can do a bunch of stuff you cannot just take it out in Orgrimmar and run around with. So,
have you seen any of the videos of people doing the drifting and the driving?
Only the trailer where they tease it, and they don't show much at all. So I assume some have, PTR'd their way to car heaven.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like, so when you're driving the vehicles, you have like a turbo bar, so you can boost yourself, right?
Yeah,
and it uses up this turbo energy bar. But to get the energy bar refilled, it doesn't refill over like time, like in dragon riding, how your energy meter will refill just naturally if you're anyway. It doesn't it doesn't refill just automatically over time. You have to be drifting. While you're drifting, it refills. So it's kind of neat. It reminds me of Mario Kart a little bit in that way. You know how you could build up your boost while you're drifting in Mario Kart?
Yeah, they're definitely, I think they're like absolutely going for that vibe. They're all a bunch of Mario Kart heads at Blizzard, is my understanding anyway. But you use it in different ways. Certain quests will require it. Other times it's just getting around. Sometimes it's just for fun. And it's these 4 factions that you're going to be doing stuff for. I know some of you are going to hear that and go, Oh, good. More rep grinding. Fun. Let's add more of that to the game. I got bad news for everybody. Rep grinds, I think they're here to stay. They've been here since the beginning.
But it's more like the spider rep than it is like just 4 entire reps. Like I think there is one overall that is over all of them, and then every week, just like in the Spider Zone, listen to us, World of Warcraft podcasters, naming things exactly what they're named. The Spider Zone.
It's pretty impressive. The Spider Zone. What else you got out there? You got your dirty kobold zone.
Exactly.
The outdoor, the boring
half
outdoor
elf,
zone.
half human zone.
There you go. Nailed it.
Anyway, the 4 factions you can pick are like the spiders you can choose to work under in that zone, and you just every week you say, this week I'm working for the Bilgewater, or this week I'm working for the Steamweedle, and you do some stuff for them, and you get sort of like reputation built up or renown built up with them, and they like you a little bit more that week, and as you build it up you get different perks from and each one of them has slightly different perks, some pets, some other items you can
Mounts
buy and
things,
stuff like
sure. Makes sense. Now here's the thing. These are all, I think all of them, at least Bilgewater and Steamweedle, I think, are already factions in the game, and you have somewhere in your UI you will find your current level of renown with them. I assume this is just stack on top of that. It's not going to include. I mean, it's not going to like you're not going to get a head start if you were super hardcore with the goblins at one point. But I don't know how that's going to look. Like here you are doing more stuff for them, but maybe you never did anything for venture companies. So is that lower? Like I got some math questions about that are totally boring.
That's a good question. Some people asked that early on when they were announcing all this about like the venture company in particular, right? Because there's already a venture company reputation in the game.
Yeah.
And so they said, nope, this is just going to be separate. You're still going to have the old one.
Okay.
And it'll be separate. And this one will just be completely different.
Probably the easiest way to deal with that, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. Good job, guys. New delves coming in this. There are 2. One called Excavation Site 9 and Side Street Sluice. I really hate the word sluice. I hate it. I hate that name. It's not a Warcraft problem.
What is a sluice?
I'm not even 100% sure. I think it has something to do with like a drainage or like some kind of pipe. I don't know.
A water channel that can control water flow and level or process materials.
It's a terrible name. It just makes me uncomfortable to hear it. I put it up there with gymnasium, proctology. I got like some names I don't like. Sluice is right up there, dude.
So far, those are all just 3 places you don't like to be.
Yeah, maybe you're onto something. Maybe that's the whole thing. But I don't like the term. I hate it. But it's fine. I get it. It's in the game, and it is what it is. It's fine.
The sluice kind of fits with the. Well, it's kind of like the so the dungeon that is going to be in there. The new dungeon is Operation Floodgate.
Ooh, I like that.
And the whole idea behind Operation Floodgate is there's a bunch of goblins that are there that are trying to blow up a dam that will if they destroy it, it will flood the dwarf zone. See, here we are again.
The dwarf zone, the small man,
the underground dwarf zone.
There you go.
The War Within.
Yeah, I know the one. You can fly down there and check it out and do stuff. I get it.
Yeah, and so we're going to have to go into Operation Floodgate and stop them from blowing up that dam to help protect all the people down there. And I guess the sluice delve might have something to do with it because it feels similar to that, right? A water channel.
Mm-hmm. I was really hoping for more than 2. I'll be honest. I'm really tired of the current ones, and so
they are kind of like like sprucing up the spruce sluice. They're sprucing up the old delves.
Yeah.
Adding some different, how there's like different stories in each of them that are every week. They're adding some new stories into the old ones that are like goblin related. But the zones are still going to be the same, but the story is going to be different, which is okay, I guess, because each of the different stories every week in a delve feels different does feel pretty distinct in some of them. Some of them they feel pretty samey, but
they remind me of like my Quake and Unreal days where new official maps would come out and you get them in the rotation and you were like, yeah, new stuff. This is awesome. I don't know this one. Nobody's got it memorized. I can camp over here, or can I? I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then the map would change to like one of the oldest ones that you're so freaking sick of. And so I'm a little worried about that. I'm just worried that like my daily best ones to go to are going to be like, well, if you want the extra chest, you better go to this one. I'll be like, I don't ever want to go in there again, dude.
Yeah.
So if they refresh, I'm give them a shot. I need to know what these changes are. But that is the one downside of that system. I really like them overall as a concept and as a system, but there's not a lot of variety in there, and I'm not just a dumb monkey that needs like a change of scenery every day. I think I can deal with it, but it's just, I don't know. It's kind of like I have a core issue, even with raiding. It's like we're gonna clear this place 5 times. It's gonna be the same every time we do it. Now they've added, you can do some hard modes and you can do some achievement runs, and all those other things are all true. Or they play differently on heroic, or if you go as far as mythic and that kind of thing. I understand all that, and that variety is great. But at the end of the day, it's still Spiderland full of spiders. and I don't know why I'm so hung up on that. I think it's because where Blizzard got my feet the most wet early was with Diablo and Diablo 2, and they both featured insane amounts of randomness. Because the worlds were being the dungeons anyway, and in the case of the overworld in Diablo 2, all of it is being procedurally generated every time I play it, and no one's game is the same as mine. To me, those concepts resonated so hardcore that when I don't see that carried through on everything else I play, a little piece of me, who's not very realistic and not very easy to work with, but this little piece of my brain always goes, I wish it was more random than that. Or I wish the backdrop would change dynamically. I don't know why I've got that voice still, but I do it with these. Delves are the current victim of this for me.
Yeah.
So,
but I get it. There's something exciting, that's why roguelike games are so fun for people, right? Yeah. Is you're doing the same thing over and over again, but there's fundamental things about it that are randomized and switched up every time.
Yeah,
that make it interesting. But World of Warcraft has to. I don't know that has to is the right way to say this, because it's a choice that they've made. But the way it does it is it doesn't want things to be too randomized, because there's a level of predictability that players, I think, want when they're trying to perfect content. And so they want to go into a delve knowing, okay, that was hard this time and I've increased the level and all this kind of stuff. Well, I know this is going to be here and I know this is going to be here. So let me change my talent in this way. Let me make Bronzebeard his talents this way so that I can tackle that challenge a little bit differently this time. So it's just a different play style, I guess.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. That's why I'm saying it's an unreasonable little piece of my brain. It doesn't.
I don't know that it's unreasonable. It's just you wish there was a part of the game that did something like that.
Yeah, and when they do, I get super jazzed. Like when Timeless Isle showed up for the first time, I remember going, "Oh, I can find random treasure out here. Yeah. I can." It is like a Diablo level kind of. It wasn't in the end. It wasn't exactly like that. Still predetermined areas, and pretty soon mods would come out that just said, "Here's where all the things are. Go get them." And that.
Well, you might be excited about. I think in the spring or in the summer, they've got something that they're doing on the roadmap that said, what is it? It's what was the old thing? Horrific Visions. They're revisiting Horrific Visions, and Horrific Visions were back in, I don't even remember the expansion that they were in. It might have been Legion. Or the one where you went to, maybe it was, I don't know, it was the
Battle
one
for
where
Azeroth, right? Because you had to do the giant eyeball fight. I think that was Battle for Azeroth. I could be wrong, but I think that's right.
I don't think so. It was before that, Horrific Visions, I think. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. It doesn't matter. The point is the Horrific Visions were a type of content where you went into like a place, and it was very randomized, and the abilities that you would get, I think, and they were trying to play on that whole thing. and then they went a little too far with the Torghast, and that got a little funky. But they've been experimenting in the past years with this roguelike gameplay. So hopefully they will eventually get it right, and your unreasonable Scott brain will be
shut that shit down. Yeah, put that thing in the corner where it belongs. Real quick here, that was 8.3. It looks like, so that would have been. Let's see, Visions of N'Zoth, patch 8.3. Yeah, but what? It was
Battle for
It was
Azeroth.
Battle for Azeroth. Yeah, and you had those were fun. Now that I'm looking back, I forgot about this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
those were really fun.
If they're bringing that back in a meaningful way, I don't remember seeing that on the roadmap. That's fantastic. How did I miss that?
Yeah, it's like spring, late spring or something.
Also, new dungeon, Operation Floodgate. Should be fun. Lots of opportunity there to get your your mythic on and whatnot. And new raid, Liberatone of, is it Liberation? Is that just spelled wrong?
I put Liberatone of
Liberatoin of Undermine. Notes. I love it. It's almost better, but yes, Liberation of Undermine. That will be where you and I and our team bang our heads against the wall and learn what's what and finally beat it.
I am so excited about this.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So I have to admit something. I remember you were trying to remember on a recent episode of Core I was listening to who it was. You thought it was Bo or John or somebody that didn't like goblins. I'm the one.
You were the one. You know what? After the show, this is just this last week. After the show, because John was like incredulous about me saying this. He's like, "What do you mean? I don't have a problem with." And I'm like, "I swear it was him." And then after the show ended, I went, "I think I'm thinking of Bobby, maybe."
Yeah.
But then I forgot about it. So A, I'm glad you heard it. And B, confirmation. Bobby's the one that does not like the goblin motif.
Yeah. Right? So you might be wondering, well, I guess Bobby's checking out this whole patch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have to say that what I've seen so far about everything does look fun. And they did pick a goblin-y type theme that does have me excited for the raid, which is, I am very excited to see a casino raid.
Yeah, right? Like there's stuff in there that has me excited just because it sounds ambitious. It doesn't, honestly, I don't care that much if it was goblins or something else. But what they showed in the most recent WoWcast, it's not the most recent, but one of the recent WoWcast episodes. Hey, that's that chair I sat in. Weird. That's weird to see the same chair I sat in. When I did the Metzen thing. But anyway, the vibe of it doesn't matter to me so much as the just mechanically they're doing some wild stuff in here. And one of those boss fights with that big swinging car, big truck, I don't even know what encounter it is, but we're going to have a ball in here. And also, you know what's going to be nice? I don't have to stare at spiders' asses for the rest of my life in here. We have enough of that. I'm good. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Too many spinnerets.
Yep. It was way too many. But this looks like fun. Lots of mechanical stuff. It brings the sci-fi business out a little bit.
Yeah, there's a boss in there named like Bugsy.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. I'm excited about it. We get to fight what it sounds like. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
At one point it sounds like we get to fight a giant animatronic slot machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a boss called the One-Armed Bandit.
Yep. Which is awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be really, really fun.
Yep. I'm very excited. And this is all coming quick. Although is Wing 1 available at launch? I don't know if that's correct or not.
So I'm glad you asked that because I've seen some people get confused about this. So there's a difference between the launch of the patch and season 2.
Right.
They come together. But the patch 11.1 and the zone Undermine. So the Undermined, what did you say? Undermined it?
Undermined it. Yeah.
That launches on February 25th.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's when that starts. But season 2 that comes with it doesn't start until a week later on the 4th of March. And what that means is you're going to have a week where you get to go to the Undermine, you get to, check out the new drive feature, you get to start the quest line and play through and sort of get the story and the motivation behind what you're going to be doing. And then on March 4th, when season 2 starts, that's when the raid opens. That's when Mythic Plus starts. And that's when you get to do those things. One thing that they're doing differently with raiding in season 2 of this expansion is historically, usually they sort of stagger when the different raid difficulties are coming out. Like normal and heroic will be first, then maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, Mythic will launch.
Yeah.
And then, somewhere in those 2 or 3 weeks, somewhere LFR will come out, and they stagger it all. But now normal, so LFR, all the raid difficulties, LFR, normal, heroic, and Mythic are all going to launch on the first day of season 2 on March 4th.
Wow. Okay.
So,
That's
which
great.
I think is great.
I do too.
I think why change it? I really think that the reason that they used to stagger it had to do with the race to world first.
Yeah.
And I think that they just one of the things that caused was this whole idea of heroic splits in Mythic Plus. People would work. They'd jump into heroic first and start getting a bunch of heroic gear. But time will tell whether the fact that you can jump into Mythic right away, whether or not that will change the practice of splitting up your the world. When I'm talking about the race to world first guilds, those teams, what they would do is some of them, they would do some runs in heroic to get some gear to help push them along in Mythic rather than jumping into Mythic right away, even though they could do Mythic right away. But we'll see how Mythic being out right away and them really wanting to be the world first, how that impacts whether or not they do these heroic splits and try to gear up in heroic first.
If you had to bet, what do you think? How do you think that plays out?
I don't think it will. I think they'll still do it. I think you'll have some guilds, probably the ones in China that don't start exactly at the same time as everybody else.
Sure.
I think they will jump into Mythic first. Like they won't be doing as many of the heroic splits because they're going to be a little bit behind the 8-ball. And so behind schedule. And I think they'll want to they did that kind of in this last season. They were doing Mythic raids, the Mythic raid before some of the other European and North American teams, and they got some of the first kills, but the other ones caught up, to them. And I think they'll still do that because I bet you the way it will work out is that investing some time at the beginning to get some good gear in the heroic version of the raid will end up working out in the long run to make it so that it's easier for you to get deeper into the Mythic raid in the long run.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. I think you're probably...
That's my guess.
I think you're right. If my money's on Bobby. I'm not a betting man, but maybe I will be after a big casino fight,
Yeah.
It's exciting. I like the backdrop of it all. Also, just a side note or a way to tack on to the end of this thing, there is a new Raid Renown track. So, hey, y'all, you want some more Renown grind in your life? Good news.
Yeah, the whole reason for them doing this, the Raid Renown track, is so what is it, right?
We should say what it is. That's a good idea.
It's basically, it's called the Bellagio Loyalty Rewards Club, which again, come on, casino. It's like
Bellagio.
So Vegas, right?
Yeah, it's Bellagio with a G. They literally just did it. They named. Yeah. There probably is a Bellagio Loyalty Rewards Club, but this just is a G. Nice job,
exactly.
guys.
It's like how you go into a casino, and we go to Vegas every year with the TMS crew,
right?
And we stay at the Plaza. The Plaza has their own version of this. You can get a loyalty card. So it's very, very casino-y what they're doing. But the Loyalty Rewards Club, what it is that as you kill bosses, you will or do stuff, you kill bosses or mini bosses in the raid, you're going to get reputation that builds up with this new track, and it's a renown track. So after you get so much reputation, I believe it's like 2,000 or 2,500 once you get that much reputation, you'll move up to the next level in the renown track. And just like renown anywhere else in the game, each level of renown comes with its own benefits. You know, it might be access to pet, but these things have to do with making your life easier in the raid. The idea was, we have a system right now for this, you know, where you can kill a boss later in the raid X number of times to complete a quest so that you can get a skip, right?
Sure.
So that you can skip to later in the raid and you can skip a lot of the bosses. Well, they've folded this skip idea into this renown track, and also they folded in the in this last raid they had the what were they called? I can't remember what they were called, but it was the little items you could get to turn into another quest, which would give you a stacking buff over time that made it so that you did more damage and healing in the raid.
Yeah, and you turned it in at the front of the raid to a spider who gave you the buff if you had it. It wasn't always clear if you had it, so you had to go up and like check every time. I did anyway, obsessively.
Yeah. So they're folding these two ideas into just a renown track. So as you progress through the renown track, you will just get it automatically. There's not some weird quest you have to remember to turn in, anything like that. It's just, you'll build renown, you'll naturally get these rewards, and then they're building in a bunch of extra rewards to it as well, which are going to be cool little things like transmog vendors that'll be available for you to do right outside the entrance.
Sure.
Profession tables that you get access to, mounts.
I like that. Put it all right there, you know?
Yeah.
Don't make me fly all over. I mean, I know the game, people worry that the game gets too convenient. Like there's such a thing as too many quality of life improvements, and then the game loses its ability to challenge you or get you to do anything outside of the norm. But things like that, like the renowned vendors, have them near the place that I do the thing. I don't want to go high. I don't want to the first time go, all right, where's Wowhead say that guy is? Okay, let me fly into, shoot, is that him? No, that's a dragon guy. Go somewhere. I hate that. Like make the thing I'm doing pay out where it is. That's what I want.
There's challenge that makes succeeding rewarding, and then there's stupid things.
Drudgery. You know,
like who is saying to themselves, who's going to be saying to themselves, you know, I deserve more credit because when I wanted to turn in my token for a tier piece, I had to go find it across the zone in an alley somewhere.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to that's not rewarding to have to do that.
No.
Just give it to me.
And they had a couple of examples of that in this expansion that I think were a little egregious. Like me trying to do the final queen raid when it's just you solo and it's the story ender. How you got that and found how to go there was so dumb. And it was an example of the game just saying, the internet will tell everyone. No, don't do that. That's lame. I get mad when you do that. Show me in the game. Give me an experience that I want to remember. The experience shouldn't be, how'd you see it? Well, I got on the internet and went to wowhead.com and searched how do I find this thing, and then found the vendor, and then used another mod that I used to help me pinpoint stuff on a map, and that's lame. You know?
And unfortunately, there is a lot of that in this game.
I know. I just don't like when Blizzard clearly let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one thing that it's in there. I get it. It's going to be in there. Everything's going to have. It's how we min max. I get it. I get why it happens that way, but I much prefer it when they don't just go, the internet will do it. And you can feel when they do that. I can feel it. Versus
it happened with this whole Circe's Signet stuff.
Yep.
There's so much that happens on that island for getting your ring and the gems that if I did not know that WoW had existed and that someone had not told me that an article had been released about this, how to get this thing, then I would never have known.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Why would you have known otherwise? And also, this is like, go back to more traditional video games for a second. Let's say, I don't know when this turned, early 2000s, obviously with the growth of the internet is when this turned, but it used to be you would go buy your new Super Nintendo or your Genesis game and it had a big full color, many pages manual. It would describe your weapons, a little story, some notes in the back you could take. Like it gave you this really great foundation for what you were about to play. And in fact, it was the tutorial oftentimes, what you read in that manual, and they wouldn't do it in the game. And then something changed. They started to be black and white. They started only being a couple of pages long. They started to be an insert card. And then they became nothing because they just assumed the internet will take care of it. Now, I'm not saying the internet, I'm not getting on the bandwagon of everything's worse. It's the shitification of, I'm not doing that. But I am going to say that I do appreciate an MMO whose world is so tied in feeling and tone and music and the experience of exploration and finding things out. I really like it when they are willing to give me the things in the world I need to experience that without having to leave that world to find out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's a problem to offload some of that stuff to the internet. I don't think that's inherently a problem, but if you have a system in the game that it works, like you should be able to inside the game somehow figure out how it works. If I get a token that drops off of a boss and all it says is trade this into so-and-so to get a piece of gear, this last raid was the most egregious with that because you literally got the token that would give you a tier piece and it said trade this in to so-and-so at this named place to get a piece of gear. And that at its heart, you're like, okay, they've told me where to go and where to get it. Sure, that's annoying that I have to, why not just make it so I can click the damn thing? But that's annoying. But the place that it said that you have to go, there was no way to find it by looking at the map.
Nope.
You could not. You had, I had to, because I tried, because I want to be able to just look at the map and do it. I had to look up the token on the internet and find out how to turn it in, where to go, look at somebody's map that they made, and watch some stupid 3-minute YouTube video that could have been 30 seconds because some dude was like, hey, so-and-so here, gonna show you.
Yeah, because I'd hear all that preview. Oh my gosh, dude, you're getting to the heart of why I hate all this so much.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, what's funny is that night when you were telling the rest of the raid about where the dude was.
Yeah.
And most of them didn't know either. Like you were the font of information that day because you had already gone through the trouble to go to the internet and find this freaking guy. But to me, it's like real life. If you are in a major city and there's a thing I need to do, you can say to me, go to City Hall and pick up your paperwork. I know what that is. I don't need to search. I can find out very simply and easily because it's the city. There are iconic locations. They're there for a reason. They serve the public, blah, blah, blah. But if you say to me, I want you to take this dirt road in Kentucky, take it west outside of here and go, and then you're going to, like Andy Dufresne telling you to find a rock that has no earthly business belonging there. Like, don't do that to me. Show me that if Larry the Spider is the guy I got to go do the token with, which is basically who this thing is. In our example, have me go to the main zone or the main little platform where Fatty is hanging and there's 4 or 5 other vendors laying around and everybody's got stuff to do in there. There, it's a central location I have to go to all the time for lots of things. It's the city in my example. Don't put him way off into the alleyway somewhere where I had to hunt for it. Even after you said where it was, even after somebody else in the guild says, here's the coordinates, it still took me too long to find it. And there's another vendor there that if you talk to them, they're going to give you the wrong effing thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, I have real beef about this. I forgot how mad that made me that night. That annoyed me.
I've got lots of beef, lots of vendor beef.
Vendor beef.
But to bring it back to something positive.
Yeah, let's do that.
They're changing that in this next raid, and it feels like it's gonna be great because they're gonna have that vendor and all the other vendors right outside the raid, and it's cool because the entrance to this, just like in Vegas, you know, all the casinos are part of hotels.
Yeah.
The entrance area to the raid is a hotel in the Undermine. So and so you go into the hotel, and right before you enter the raid, in the hotel lobby area or something like that, there's a bunch of vendors, and you get everything you need right there.
That's how it should be. I'm really glad they're doing this. All right, well, there's a look at what's coming up, and it's sooner than you think, everybody. So now, let's dig into some of your feedback.
Why, it's the town crier.
It's the town crier.
The town crier.
All right, so I'm mixing these up a little bit. We're going to do some town crier, and then we're going to talk about Bobby's hardcore adventure with some of the changes happening in Season 2 Mythic and so on, Mythic Plus, rather. But I figured I'd just mix things up a little bit and do this real quick. Town Crier has emails and texts. How do those get to us? Easy. theinstance@gmail.com or 801-471-0462. And we have a good example of one of those right here with missed episodes, although he spelled missed like Miss Pandaria, which I appreciate. This is from Frederick Nuhajar Madsen. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Probably not.
Noyar?
Something like that. I don't know. He's from somewhere else. It says, hey, somewhere else. He's not in the United States, is all I'm saying. That's terrible the way that came out. I didn't mean it.
Are you sure? Maybe he is in the United States.
Hey, he could be. Here's what he says. Hey, Scott, for the last 5 years, I've been playing Classic WoW, and part of my experience has been listening to old episodes of The Instance, which covers those expansions. Many times, actually. The problem is that almost all the episodes from Mists of Pandaria, which is why I use the term Mist, are not to be found anywhere online as far as I know. Can they be uploaded somewhere? I would love to listen to those episodes again. All right, so it's hard for me to actually go back and pinpoint which ones are Mist expansion episodes and separate them. But what I am going to do is go find all episodes that are currently not represented and put them up on archive.org in their own little category so that anybody anywhere can get them anytime. So you're right that those don't currently exist. There's like, with a show as old as this one, like it started in 06, everybody remember. You change hosts, the technology changes, how hosting works changes, RSS changes, and sometimes that means that you lose a crap ton of stuff. Either the files aren't no longer linked properly, or they don't exist, or whatever. Servers are down, old host provider doesn't exist anymore. Just the way of it. But I do have all the OG files, and I will be putting those up this week. So watch for that. I'll put a post out everywhere that we post things, including the Patreon, letting people know when those are up. So you'll be able to have access to all of that, Frederick, if that is indeed how you say your first name. I assume so. It's just a K, not a CK. Yeah.
The beauty and wonderness, that's not a word.
No, not at all.
The beauty of podcasting and how accessible it was and still is over the years is also the curse in the modern age, I think, because there's like YouTube is easy, right? Like when you make video content, you put it on YouTube or TikTok, but they give you a platform to make that easy.
Yep.
And all that. But
if you get banned or they go down or something else like that happens, there's Zippo you can do about it. So the nice thing about it's a double-edged sword. The nice thing about podcasting has always been you control your feed, your files, your everything. Although these days a lot of services are around there too to kind of be like YouTube. In fact, YouTube themselves now host basically their audio podcasts are videos now, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but you're right, and it's double-edged because on the one hand you're in charge. On the you could I make a micro-blogging Twitter equivalent because I hate how Twitter is run now? Could I do that on my own? Yes. Would anyone come there? No. Maybe
many have tried.
Many have tried. Many have failed. And maybe some are succeeding now. But the point is that the Web 2.0 platformification of everything is real. And podcasts were lucky enough to be based on a standard, not a platform. And I hope it never changes, but it does have this one challenge. So anyway, good point, Bobby. Anyway, watch for that, Frederick. I'll have some info up soon. We also got this message from Almighty Cow. He sent this in via our email address. Says, hey guys, on time walking dungeons, is it just me or are the time walking dungeons broken? Every time I do them to work on my B mount achievement, there's two ways you can get that B, but I know what he's talking about. Anyway, there are Fury Warrior tanks one-shotting everything. Or like last night, a Resto Druid cat one-manning the entire dungeon while the rest of the group sat at the entrance doing multi-boxing, perhaps, he says in question marks. And I struggled to keep up. Some of the OP Fury Warriors are level 11, so it's not not an overgearing issue. He says a level. He means eye level. No, what does he mean by level 11?
It means literally level 11.
Like character level 11?
Yes.
Good Lord. Yeah. All right. Do you think this overpowered dynamic is due to the recent switch to level scaling that they did? If so, Blizzard broke time walking dungeons. Thanks. Almighty Cow sent that in. I would say that's more about Fury Warriors being OP at the moment.
No, I don't think so, because maybe a little bit, I guess, but Fury Warriors aren't one-shotting all the raids at max level or all the dungeons at max level.
That's true. Yeah.
It's only happening this way in time walking, so it's definitely a scaling thing. They have to. Anybody can go in there, right? You can have a level 11 person be in a dungeon with a level 80 person.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, I guess.
Yeah, and they're in the time walking, and they have to scale it in such a way, and they have to do it in a way where you, as your level 11 Fury Warrior, who only has like 3 abilities because you're level 11, can still keep up with. But I think in order to do that, sometimes they swing the pendulum too hard in one direction, and some classes, because of their reliance on particular stats or something like that, they just end up being real lucky and being able to stomp all over stuff.
That's a good point, because you literally are looking at a level 11 character who's just so happens to be really strong at 11, 2 more levels, and perhaps a druid or something else is just going to mop the floor with what the Fury Warrior was doing at 11. Because and I'm not sure they can fix that. Like,
I'm not sure they want to fix it.
Yeah, why? I mean, it's such a, I don't want to diminish its quality or say it's not important to the game.
Yeah.
But it's a side thing, you know?
Yeah. So for sure, I'm not trying to, different people are playing different content for different reasons, and everybody's fun is valid. But I think most people are doing time walking dungeons for one of 2 reasons. Either for cosmetic rewards, because of achievements, like our almighty cow here is trying to get.
All praise be to his name. Yeah,
is trying to get the beam out, right?
Sure.
But the other reason is people will be trying to level up characters by just chain running time walking dungeons. Those are the 2 main reasons that I see people doing time walking dungeons, or to get the weekly quest done that gives you a chest reward, like you're trying to get 5 or something time walking dungeons completed,
right,
for the quest. Now, all 3 of those cases are people who probably want to do it as quickly as they can anyway.
Yeah.
So they're just like trying to check off a box on a list of things that they need to get done either that week or that day. And so I think not many people care that it is that way. Like,
I think most
when I was doing it, for the reasons that I was doing it, whenever someone was super powerful and could run ahead, just literally dungeon started and they would run ahead halfway through, drag everything, and then just nuke it down. Like, I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything and this isn't engaging, but it'll be done faster.
Yeah.
So
yeah. A lot of people are
not
happy.
in there because I want to be there.
Right.
I'm there because I want the thing that I get at the end.
It's like John's always saying on Core, he would hide in the corpse of the downed boss and let everyone else do trash, because he hated doing trash so much for the next boss, and then he would show up for the boss fight and then get the rewards. And everything
he could alt tab out and play Peggle or something.
Yeah. Or for a while we could play it in the game. Remember that? Remember when Peggle was playable?
Yeah.
Oh, I miss those days. What happened there? I guess EA wouldn't let that happen now, but because they own PopCap. But at the time, you could play that. You could play Bejeweled, another PopCap game. You could play it right there, and while you were flying, it was like a flight thing. So I got to go all the way to Stormwind, pull up a game of Peggle, and play for 10 minutes. It was amazing. The good old days. Thanks for your emails, your questions, your thoughts. Please send more of those in. theinstance@gmail.com or 801-471-0462. Now let's get some hardcore.
You think you know power?
Well, you don't know power until you've heard Bobby talk about his Mythic Plus journey. his journey
Yeah.
in Mythic Plus. Season 2 Mythic Plus overview. Tell me, are there some big changes coming, or are we kind of just looking at new content, same thing, rinse, repeat?
There's a lot of big changes, especially for people who are really pushing Mythic Plus a lot and trying to level their keystones and get all the way up in there. People who do a lot of Mythic Plus, there's some big changes for them. It might look kind of the same for people who either don't do it or don't do it very much, but because on the surface Mythic Plus is Mythic Plus, right? Like the idea is after you do a base level Mythic 0 dungeon, you get a keystone, which you can then use that keystone to enter a Mythic Plus dungeon and then level it up. Right. So that's still staying the same, but there are a lot of details that are changing. Some of them is stuff that always changes every season. Like we're getting a new dungeon pool for Mythic Plus. That dungeon pool is what it is it's always 4 dungeons from the current expansion,
right,
and then 4 dungeons from other stuff.
We got a new one that we talked about, Operations Floodgate. That's your one new one.
Yeah, that's a new one. Yeah.
Current one, Cinderbew Meadery, Dark Flame Cleft. I have one of those. I have to have it removed before my next doctor's appointment. The Rookery, Priory of the Sacred Flame.
Yeah, those are the 4 War Within dungeons that were not included in the last season.
And your stuff from previous expansions, you got the Motherlode, big fan of the Motherlode, like that one a lot. Theater of Pain and Operation Mechagon, the Workshop. I don't like that one. I didn't like the Mechagon stuff very much. But anyway, whatever. There's always something. There's always a bummer in there. But that's the new pool. Are you happy with that? You like the look of it?
I mean, it's obviously a lot of these are being picked because they're Goblin themed, right? The Motherlode and well, Operation Mechagon isn't Goblin themed. It's
gnomes.
Gnome themed.
That may as well be both of those things. They're freaking.
Yeah, gnomes and goblins kind of live in the same space in my head.
Yeah.
I do like gnomes more than goblins, but
I think I would take goblins over gnomes, but not by much.
I don't know.
I like their attitude a little bit more. Because goblins are just like kind of dicks, and gnomes are just like, we're gonna make it out of the sun energy. Whee! Like it's just something a little too excited about them. I can't explain it.
Yeah, they're too optimistic and hopeful for you, Scott.
Yeah, I know. I can't deal with all this optimism. Not in Azeroth. Come on. Yeah.
Have you seen the world lately? Gnomes.
Oh boy. So there's the item level loot tables, all the timers and stuff. Does it all look right to you? Like that? I didn't realize the timers were they could vary. I always thought, because I haven't done much Mythic anything, I always thought the timers were kind of set across the board, but that makes sense, right? Every encounter is different, so they have to.
Yeah, some dungeons have fewer bosses. Some dungeons are thicker with trash or have mechanics that make things challenging or slow you down. So the timers all have to be set for each dungeon. You kind of got to set the timer. I don't know how they pick the timers. If they run through it and kind of like pick it that way, or if there's some sort of math they use to figure it out. But all the War Within dungeons are all at 30-minute timers. So I don't know if that says something that they're all the same. But anyway, timers, whatever. Timers are timers.
They are what they are. Sure.
They are what they are. So what's interesting to me is that one of the changes that they're making this time is they've changed the scaling of the dungeons. So in Mythic Plus, every time your keystone level increases, so does the health and damage of the enemies.
Yeah.
So, health and damage of keystone level 3 enemies is a little bit more than keystone level 2. And when you would graph all these out, you would usually have sort of like a graph, a linear increase, and then there's usually a point at which things jump around a little bit and get a little, and that's always like these inflection points in the scaling that, going from 3 to 4 is about the same as going from 4 to 5, but then for some reason going from 8 to 9 or 7 to 8 would be a big jump for some reason.
Right.
They've redone the math behind the scaling of Mythic Plus dungeons for this one to make it a much more smooth curve. Everything from each level is a 7% increase from the previous level. So health and damage both increased by 7%, and from the previous level.
Why wasn't it always like that?
I think it's been that I think they tried to do it that way.
Yeah.
But it used to be like 10% increases. But I think something happened. So it's not 10%. The percent increase is not based on like the Mythic 0 level. It's not like you're increasing from Mythic 0 by 10%, and then the next keystone is by 20% from the Mythic 0, and then by 30%. That's not how it works.
Okay.
It's always 10% from the previous level.
Oh,
now,
okay.
why am I saying that? Is because what that means in practice is that actually, instead of, a keystone level 6 wasn't just 60% harder than the 0. It was actually more like the math would make it work out to be, more like, I don't know, 70 or 70 something percent, because you're basing your increase on the previous one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the definition of, well, maybe not exponential, but I understand what you're saying.
It's not exponential,
right.
But it's not completely linear. And a really easy math example is if your health starts at 100 at keystone level 0, at keystone 2 it would be 110 because you increase it by 10%, but at keystone 3 it would be 121,
right?
Because that's 10% of 110 is 11. Right.
So you have percentage creep. You have, that makes sense. Like on paper, it's like simple. It's like, 10% every time, but you're not doing 10% from the base or 20 or 30, like you said. And also, the other thing that makes this complicated is it isn't just that the health of your enemies and their damage output is being scaled. The mechanics of the actual thing is changing, right? The actual encounters. So I know it's not, fixes are one thing, but like, that boss doesn't blow fire. To use a very basic example, that boss only blows fire after Mythic plus 2, but at 1 it doesn't. So
there is no. I see what you're saying. There is no level 1 keystone. There's only a 0.
Right,
it goes
0
from 0
and
to 2 for some silly reason.
It's weird, but I hate that.
But once you're at Mythic 0, all the mechanics are the same, but they do add more mechanics from normal to heroic to Mythic.
Right.
But as you progress through the keystone levels, all the mechanics are not going to change.
Oh, I thought they did. I thought stuff changed.
Only the affixes change.
Okay. So I knew affixes did, but like I thought if like a. So here's maybe a better example. Let's say something makes the floor be lava in the fight, and that lasts 8 minutes at some mythic level, but then 2 tiers above that lava lasts a whole lot longer. That's not a new mechanic necessarily. It's still lava on the floor, but how long it lasts has definitely changed. And so do those count against, like, in other words, I just don't know how that stuff scales alongside.
Well, that's not happening either. It's still going to be the same. Now, that might happen from heroic to mythic.
Yeah.
But mythic plus 2.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Those mechanics are going to be the same as mythic plus 15.
Yeah. It's my perspective's bad because all I ever think of this stuff is like, oh yeah, well, when I went from normal to heroic, things really got weird. And then when I tried the first couple of bosses on mythic, it got real weird. Yeah. Well, that's because I'm jumping an entire tier. Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like new mechanics too, because mechanics that on a base mythic level, or even on a plus 2 or plus 3 or plus 4, that you could have ignored or didn't have to worry much about. Once you get up to plus 12, every single mechanic that you didn't really pay attention to before, they all matter.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why it could feel that way. But the mechanics are all there all the way through. But the scaling is being smoothed out by being just a 7% increase all the way through. Also, they've reworked how the affixes happen a little bit. They're making it so that not as many affixes affect you as early on.
Affixes affix you? Wait, that's wrong. Yeah. It's the opposite.
So you won't get as many as you go through, and so that'll be a little bit easier. The effect, I think, is going to be that you're going to have a more smooth, predictable, and easier to go from keystone to keystone level as you go through it, and there won't be quite as many punishing switches from from like 7 to 8 or something like that, or and whatnot. They're getting rid of another thing they're doing is they're getting rid of one of the affixes, the Zalatath's bargain ones. They're getting rid of Oblivion and replacing it with one called Pulsar. So there's what is it? Which is just a reworking of it. So Oblivion was the one where every once in a while these glowing orbs, these little like balls or orbs would appear all over the place, and they would start to float towards the enemies. And if like the mobs or the boss picked one up, it would buff the bad guys. And what you could do as players is intercept them, and you grab them, and it would buff you.
Got it.
That in practice or in theory, that sounded like it would work really well, but it ended up being very difficult to do depending on the encounter. Lots of feedback from the community was that it would bug out a lot. Sometimes the orbs would go through the floor or get stuck in the walls, or like on objects like mine carts and stuff like that. And so it would be really difficult. So now what they're doing, Pulsar is kind of the same, but now what's happening is these orbs are going to appear around the players. Each of the players is going to have orbs spinning around them, and they'll stay around you as a player, but you have to run and pick up some other people's orbs before the enemies can grab those orbs.
Gotcha.
So the mechanic is kind of the same, but the way it's being presented is different.
Yeah. So
that if there's a weird obstacle in the way, it's not going to get trapped or something like that. It's going to always be following you as a player.
Less prone to bugs and less prone to exploits, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And just other things are being reworked. There's new achievements, which is really exciting. There's this. It's always been that the achievement for getting rating ended at 2,500. You would get 2,500, and then that would be like your Keystone Master or whatever it is.
Yep. You walk away with a unique mount for doing that and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. 2,500, you would get a special like flourish on the appearance of your tier set.
That's right.
Now they're adding one at 3,000, which is going to be really interesting, and it's going to be a different mount. This is where you get the mount. It's called the Enterprising Shredder Tank.
That thing looks really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like something a Goblin would come up with for sure.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I've never gotten to 3,000 rating before. I've always stopped at like 2,800 if I even got that far, because after 2,500, it's whatever.
It's just fluff. Sure.
Yeah. So I might try 3,000 this time. I got to get that mount.
So you start at 0 though, again. Right?
Oh yeah. Every season you start at rating 0.
So there's no cumulative points. They don't add another 3,000 on top of it. It's just always 0. It shows how much I know
every season,
about.
Everything starts over. Yeah.
Yeah. Mythic rules.
The last thing that they are doing to that I think some really hardcore Mythic Plus players are excited about is one thing that's always really frustrating is when you get up to the high level Keystone levels. It's very difficult, like it's supposed to be, right?
Sure.
And the way Keystones have always been designed is that if you fail to meet the timer, if you fail to beat the timer, then your Keystone would get reduced. And when you're doing like Keystone level 12, 13, 14, some people 15 or higher, it's really hard to do that. And it's very frustrating to have your Keystone level dropped down to, like, if you're working on 13 and it's just challenging, it's frustrating to have, after you fail to beat the timer, your Keystone level drop down to 12. And it's like, okay, well, we'd like to go. We only have time for one more dungeon run. We wish we could try the 13 again.
Yeah.
But now we have to do the 12 to make it so that next time we get on, we can try the 13 again.
Sure.
And so they're adding some ways in so that's called that's called depletion of your Keystone, right? It goes down.
Yeah.
They're making it so that still happens as you're working on the lower levels, but starting at Keystone level 12, there will be there will be a series of achievements that you can get to where if you have beaten the timer on all of the dungeons at Keystone level 12, then no longer will your Keystone drop below level 12.
Oh.
it will go. And then it's that way for every level above that. So after you've gotten the one for 12, then if you beat the timer for all the dungeons at Keystone level 13, then now your Keystones can't drop below 13.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting way to approach the reason they're doing it.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
It's that they, I think they like the idea of depleting Keystones, which I still don't necessarily. I don't think
I don't love it either, but this is definitely a step in a way of at least addressing it or giving you a path forward.
It's at least acknowledging that the depletion of Keystones is it's disproportionately punishing to the highest end players.
Yeah.
So they're at least addressing that. I hope that one day they get rid of Keystone depletion altogether. I would like it to work similar to the way Delves work, where once you've unlocked a Keystone, you can just choose it.
Yeah.
Just like you can choose, like you still have to work your way up, just like in Delves. If you want to do a tier 7 delve, you have to work up. You have to go 1 through 5, 6 first, and you have to get to 7, and you have to get to 8. You still have to work your way up.
Yeah.
But once you're there, now you can, whenever you're doing a delve, you can just pick whichever tier you want to do. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I wish they would do it that way.
Maybe they'll end up there.
Maybe
they're learning a lot from Delve, so let's hope.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention is there is a new PvP zone. Neither of us are big PvP players in this game, so actually I shouldn't say that. I don't know if you are or not. Do you not play much PvP?
I'm not.
Okay,
I am not.
Me neither. No. Never been a thing for me. Just doesn't. I don't know. Just don't think the game's geared around it. But there is.
We know you all exist out there. You must exist, otherwise, because they're still making this stuff. So
yeah, it's still out there. So good news. You're getting Cage of Carnage, which sounds like a cage match Thunderdome style thing. I like the concept of it, but I probably won't be in there.
No, I won't be in there either. I haven't been in an arena match since like Cataclysm, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But this comes out at launch.
If you're excited, if you do play PvP a lot, if you do arenas, I would love to hear your thoughts on these maps, because I have no context. Like I don't know whether this is exciting and good or not.
No, I don't know either. I mean, I like watching people play arena. Like I like the competitive scene. It's fun. I don't really follow it super hardcore, but I like watching it. So I know this is for someone. But I wish all of you luck, those who do find that they want to play in your new arena, because it's coming out on launch day of the 24th.
Yeah.
All right. It's going to do it for today. A quick reminder, we're supported by you fine folks at home at patreon.com/theinstance. Got a brand new dude in there, Eric Johnson. I like his last name. It's a prestigious name. Got a lot of cachet there, to that name.
A lot of people like that name. Apparently.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably never get another Frankenberger unless it's someone you're related to, is all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's rare. It's a rare last name. If anything, I admire it, because there's a billion Scott Johnsons. There's only one Bobby Frankenberger.
Yeah.
And Bob, if you're his mom. Anyway, that is going to do it for us this week. Don't forget frogpants.com/instance for all things the website. You can find everything you need to there. And we'll be back soon with more. Hopefully an episode in the next month to talk all about what we think of this new patch. We'll be deep within its grasp by that point. And I'm very much looking forward to this. Like, sitting here talking about it's great and all. But I don't like the downtimes of WoW where I'm a little bit out of it. I'd rather be engaged all the time, and new content does that for me. So we hope you guys as well feel that way. Let us know. Keep those comments coming. Bobby, any final words before we get out of here?
Well, casinos might make me like goblins.
Oh my gosh, it's going to happen, you guys. Mark your time, mark your watches the day you heard it here, right here on the air. That'll do it for us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us comments. We'll read those as well. Some of that stuff will make it onto the show as well. So it's yet another avenue for your voice to be heard. We appreciate everybody, their support, and watching us, listening to us wherever you get the show. Well, that'll do it for us. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Once upon a time, there was a hero named you. Find the next step of your quest at frogpants.com.